The Houston Texans are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday, and I don't know if it's a must-win game for them, but it is definitely a must-win game for this fan base because, as we talked about a little bit earlier this week, no fan base waivers quite like Houston Texans fans. When the going gets rough, they will find a small child or woman and get on the life raft.
Yeah, they're ready to hit that panic button. They're hovering over it,
which is crazy because they'd still be 2-2 and
but they're
in
supposed to
first
go
place
undefeated,
in the
Paul.
AFC South. No one said that, did they?
No. But that's how a lot of Texans fans act. I felt like going into the season.
It's new money. It's these new money people that are coming back after having ignored them entirely for a couple of years. You have massive expectations going into the year. You get pantsed by the Minnesota Vikings. And now you're like, oh, perhaps this was all overstated. And we were a part of it to an extent, but I felt like as we continued to talk about praise after praise take from talking head after talking head, we started to get to the point where we thought, okay, I mean, they still have to prove things out there. And I don't really know what they can't improve Sunday. People want them to win with style points, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Not at all. You're totally out on the style points.
It's not happening. Why would it happen? They don't blow teams out, and the Jaguars beat them the last time they played them. And I don't care if they've lost the last 8 starts by Trevor Lawrence. The last time that we saw Trevor Lawrence get a win was against the Texans, and he threw for almost 400 yards.
Yeah, I mean the style points is probably an unrealistic ask at this point. You know, like what we've seen from the injury report so far. Even though it looks like it's going to be a little bit better today when it comes out, but it just this team. One of the things we talked about, and we'll talk about 215. I'm sure they don't cover. So like it's one of the I think it's still 6.5 at this point. That's a 1-score game, and it feels like it's going to be closer than that. Even though Evan Ingram's going to be out for the Jags this weekend, which hurts them a lot. Asking the Houston Texans to win this game by more than 10 points is a lot to ask. In my brain,
are you asking for it?
I don't know, because like you kind of talked me out of it yesterday. Like it's like in my mind, it's like the expectations for this team going into the season was that when they play a bad football team, they would win by more than 10 points. Well, this is a bad football team. Jacksonville's not good, and they're having. I mean, what Buffalo did to them was an embarrassment. They are on the cusp of firing their coach. So in theory, like in my mind, it's like, well, the Texans should do this. They should win by more than 10 points. But what they've done on the field so far this season, there's no real reason to believe that.
The Jaguars are also not as bad as they showed in that Monday game. I know we all want to believe it. They're just not. They are a middle-of-the-road NFL team. They are a borderline playoff contender. They are off to a terrible start. But first 2 games, they could have won both of them. They could have. We're looking at that one game and we're thinking to ourselves, easy pickings. But I think the Dallas Cowboys would tell you, after barely hanging on to beat the New York Giants last night because Daniel Jones, for whatever reason, decided to throw a Hail Mary a play early.
Yeah.
Not like they were going to march down the field and win it or anything like that. But I mean, it is a tough league. And I think sometimes we get this idea that they need to win with style points. And I would like them to win with style points. I just don't see it happening. So I will go back. And I will say, just to keep people engaged, they have to win this game. I'm hoping they win this game. We are all hoping they win this game. I don't know that I think they'll win. I definitely know I do not believe they will cover. I mean, 6-point spread, which is outrageous to give to a team that just lost 34-7, no matter how much hype they had going into the year.
I mean, the thing is like it is close. I mean, close to a must win because you play Buffalo the next week. Your schedule's tough. When we talked all offseason about how tough your schedule is, in everyone's mind, especially once the schedule's out and you start seeing like, okay, you do in your mind, you do the win-loss thing. Everyone got to Minnesota and said win.
Yeah.
And if you lose to Jacksonville, well, then the following Sunday at home, you play the Buffalo Bills, who are right now playing the best football in the NFL. They're playing better than the Chiefs on offense. They're electric right now. You don't want to fall to 2-3 when you've got a schedule that still includes the likes of Green Bay with Jordan Love and Detroit and Dallas, and then Kansas City and Baltimore. Like, you just don't want to put yourself in that position. So while it's not must win because of your division, if you were in any other division, you would say this is one of the most important games of the season. But you're in the AFC South, so it's like they almost get a pass a little bit because we know the division's not good. But for the fan base, you're right. It's must win, or they're going to be freaking out on Monday.
713-780-3776 is how you call in. It's how you text in. You can join us on YouTube at ESPN Houston or on Twitch at ESPN 975. One text from the 832. What happens if the Jaguars win Sunday? Where does that put us? Still in first place in the AFC South. They'd still be in first. So you've got that going for you at least. The only team that could potentially have the same record as you, the Colts, you beat. So you'd have the tiebreaker. But you would feel differently about this team. And having been here in 2018 and doing a show at the flagship, people were so checked out after an 0-3 start. I'm not saying people are going to check out. I'm just thinking people believe the hype so much this offseason that a 2-1 start has them wavering already, and a 2-2 start would have people freaking out, which is funny because there are still, after this game on Sunday, 13 games left. But this is just the way it is. And I don't blame Texas fans for feeling this way, though I do think we all should take a bit of a deep breath because a loss is not the end of the world. It's just going to be in the eyes of a lot of people out there because of those expectations.
I do think it's wavering a little too much. I think the reaction has been a little extreme. I know the loss to Minnesota was not pretty, but you're 2-1. It's the NFL, and it's like Texans fans have to relearn that the NFL is good. That like that there's just that even. I mean, look, you have teams who finish with 7 wins who get top 10 picks. It's like they think that top 10 pick teams they all have 3 or 4 wins, and that the entire bottom of the NFL is terrible. A majority of the league is within a game of 500 every single year. And I think it's like people have forgotten that. And they expected the Texans to just roll through everyone this year. And then this loss was just so staggering and so surprising. It's like, wow, like there was great expectations for this team. Like the games like this, it shouldn't have been that ugly, but losses are going to happen. And you're right. It's not the end of the world if they lose this game. It might depend on how they lose, though. Like if they have a similar performance, we'll be having a different conversation on Monday. Like if they lose 34-7 at Jacksonville, we'll be having a much different conversation. So I think you have to leave a little bit of.
Is that possible?
Yeah. I mean, anything's possible.
Thank you. Insight.
Anything's possible.
Quoting Kevin Garnett.
I don't know what else to say. Like I don't want to say no because if it happens, that's gonna bite me in the ass.
Percentage chance that it happens.
5%.
5%. That's pretty high.
Is that pretty high?
That's pretty high. Listen, I'm not
1%?
saying what is or what isn't. I'm just asking you questions. They're not loaded. I'm not trying to bully you.
No, I know you're
not trying to set you up. These aren't trick questions. I'm just curious what you feel.
I said 5%. Immediately, I was like, that might be a little high. I just want to make sure I was a single digit. Listen, as my brain was processing, I was like, don't say anything above 10.
This show is all about vibes. Okay, we're Gen Z. We're Gen Alpha.
No, we're not. We got called millennials yesterday.
Oh yeah, one of our interns. Yeah, what was it specifically that she said? You're so millennial. And you guys are just spilling tea every day. She's great though. She's funny.
She's great.
She spilled some tea about her sorority drama. Our yesterday's intern, and we've given her a homework assignment. If she can actually summarize all of this in 1 minute or less, we actually might make this a recurring segment.
Yeah.
What's going on at the sorority today?
Yeah.
But
Good sorority chats. I mean, look, there's going to be days when the Astros don't have playoff games that we're going to,
Oh, what do you mean?
There's off days.
Oh, okay.
Well, and plus, when they win the World Series, it only goes through October. So.
Oh, I mean, we're just going to talk Houston Texans all the time.
Yeah.
You say, yeah, that was a sarcastic, yeah.
Well, I just need them to be better than this. It's just negative sports talk is not as fun.
No, I honestly don't enjoy it. I mean, a lot of people think that it's easier for somebody to do a job when it's a disaster that you're talking about every day. And I disagree with that entirely because finding a new way to talk about the disaster every day when it's just bad, It gets a little bit repetitive. Now people call in, they get angry, all that stuff, but yeah. Couple of texts, 713-780-3776. Brandon T doesn't feel he's wavering. He says the Texans will be a playoff team. I still feel they'll be a playoff team. From the 832, take away our field goals. We are averaging 13 points a game. Another texter, it's not the loss, it's the 10 points in 6 quarters. It's the blowout. That's from Phillips68.
I agree. Like it's not just one game. It's the through 3 games, the offense has been bad. The offense hasn't been good. I mean, even when healthy, it's not been good. And now seems to be more and more unhealthy at this point. Now, maybe we'll get a surprise. Joe Mixon was at practice.
That's a good development. But yeah, Tank Dell, I don't think he'll play on Sunday.
Yeah, Nico was at practice today. So that's also.
He had a hamstring injury that popped up in the injury report yesterday. That was concerning. That one.
Yeah, that
more than anything.
Nico,
they can win without Tank Dell.
Yeah, they can win without Tank Dell. They did it last year. Not a lot, but they won without Tank Dell last year.
Mm-hmm.
But here's Stephon Diggs. Like, that's part of, you invested in a luxury item in Stephon Diggs, and injuries is one of those things of why you did it. But yeah, I mean, expectations for this team is to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend, and please cover.
Please,
it would just make me feel better. I'm not going to wager on them to cover. It would just make me feel better.
I also think part of it's because Texans fans, at least online, have really just kind of bullied the Jags for, I don't know, like 6 months. It feels like for some reason the Jags is the team that Texans fans online feel most comfortable punching down on, and to, like you said, lose to him last year and then lose to him this year, I think it'll be a real reality check for a lot of these people.
Especially the way they talk about Trevor Lawrence. Like, I think that adds to it. It's not just the Jags.
It's like they are the punching bags for Texans fans.
Yeah, I mean, the way Texans fans talk about Trevor Lawrence, and he's been terrible this year. I mean, it looks like an awful contract for 3 games already. But the way they talk about Trevor Lawrence, and if he throws for 400 yards and beats you this weekend, Texans fans are going to be sad.
400 yards would be crazy.
300.
I was going to say, has anyone this year thrown for 400 yards? Dalton last week had the first 300 yards, 3 touchdown game.
Andy Dalton, I mean, quarterback play's been so bad this year. It's so hard to keep up with. Like, if anyone's done anything special.
That's why mentally, when you said 400 yards, like in normal years, yes, that is like a possible thing.
But this year,
like that's straight up impossible.
Yeah, it's been awful quarterback play.